Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to the 11th episode of HeleCloud Talks Cloud. This episode is called "You Are Not Dead to Us," because we have invited two people that we used to work with who have moved on, but we're fine with that. We used to we're still suffering, but we understand. Uh, we used to do this thing where when a person leaves, we buy a cake and have them sign it, "You are dead to us," because it was funny. So this is why you are not, in fact, dead to us. This is Naz and this is Vladimir. You can say a few words about yourselves. Vladimir can go first because he's from the poor Bulgarian country.
Yeah, hello everyone. Actually, I was part of HeleCloud almost 2 years ago, I believe. So basically, as Lina said, I decided to move on. I actually rejoined a previous company I used to work for called Taxway, and I'm currently dealing with DevOps stuff. I'm also kind of a technical lead of my team. So I guess this is pretty much a short summary of myself.
Yes, awesome. Nazrul?
Hi, I'm Nazrul. I'm also from a relatively almost bankrupt country because of the money scandal, hence Malaysia. And yeah, I've been with HeleCloud. I left HeleCloud in January this year, and I joined a company based in Amsterdam. On a day-to-day basis, I'm a cloud engineer that's helping engineers in the company to use the public cloud the right way. So that's the goal and the North Star. That's about me.
All right, welcome, guys. We have a bunch of different topics for all of us today. The first one is relatively not so much to do with cloud technology as it's an important movement in the cloud industry. So Amazon or AWS, actually Amazon hired back Adam Selipsky to run AWS, considering that Andy Jassy is moving on to go and run Amazon as a CEO. So sometime later this year, he will take over from Andy Jassy, as Andy Jassy takes over from Jeff Bezos. And this Adam Selipsky, he worked at AWS formerly and then left for Tableau, and now he's coming back to run AWS. And we were talking about it yesterday, and I think that I wonder how a job interview like that goes, because if somebody asks you to apply for this role, then you're not going to say no, I would imagine. I don't necessarily see a scenario where you go, running one of the largest public cloud companies on the planet, no thanks.
Too much stress. I want to focus on farming instead.
Yes. What's it really going to do for my career? Interesting news. I must be honest. I am not usually very up to date when it comes to these names. So I had not heard of Adam Selipsky before I saw the news, but I'm happy to see that they announced a follow-up to Andy Jassy, and I personally really like Jassy. I've seen him speak several times at reInvent in close quarters, and he has a very charismatic way over him. So curious to see how Adam Selipsky will do this.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of funny because I have pretty much the same experience as I mentioned earlier. I returned to one of my previous employers, so this is something that happens in our industry, and I don't see anything wrong with it actually, because you're usually returning back on a different position. You continue working with some of the people that you used to work with, so it's kind of a familiar environment.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's somehow sort of frowned upon for no apparent reason, and we just need to normalize that stuff. And I think that that's really important because we talked about it yesterday a little bit as well. Some of the companies that I've had the most fun at before I started the company that eventually turned into HeleCloud Netherlands, I would go back there in a heartbeat if I was still looking for a job. I would totally go back. And those were great companies to work for, and I don't see anything wrong with that. But somehow in the industry, very often it's a bit frowned upon. It's ridiculous.
That's the thing, though. Vladimir put it really nicely. You're not returning to the same company at the same position. And we have to be completely frank that it's easier to go out of the company, do something else, and return to a higher position than reach that position while working at the company.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you get really comfortable. Well, the company gets really comfortable with you doing what you're doing, and growing you into another position becomes more of a challenge for everyone.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also a matter of the right moment at the right place. So something that might not be possible when you're there becomes possible later on, and actually makes it interesting to come back. So.
It's also about expectations. As you go back, you have a different set of expectations. So I'm, as a customer, I don't know I don't have any kind of expectation with Adam's upcoming new leadership, but I'm curious to know what kind of changes that he'll bring, because AWS has been growing a lot. I do feel the product alignment needs a little bit of work there. But I think I only hope for that to happen, the product alignment.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get bored anytime soon, but that's for sure. Moving on to the second item, I'm posting it in the comments. Red Hat announced general availability of Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS. They called it ROSA, which I think is kind of a nice acronym. Normally, we're not really talking about feature announcements or anything like that, but bigger ones are interesting, and this specific one is interesting, I think, because for me, it feels a bit backwards, and I'd like to have someone convince me otherwise, but it feels like you're running a platform on top of a platform. It's a strange service to offer, and mostly probably to do with migrations from existing environments.
Yeah, from what I'm reading from the press release, it looks like they have the streamlined billing in place, and that's a good thing. People can pay for stuff quickly and easily. But you're right. It's like platform on top of platform. That's what's going on here.
Well, it's very similar to VMC on AWS. It's also one of those products, like if you're fully on AWS, you probably wouldn't ever choose to go like, let's go and explore VMC on AWS. It's more of a enabler for customers to kind of more seamlessly progress to the AWS platform. So it's a bridge, so to speak.
Yeah, but there's actually this other point. If you also have a hybrid deployment and you have some on-prem resources, and perhaps you can keep the way you deploy stuff on-prem and in AWS using the same tool set. So perhaps this is one of the advantages of such additional technologies.
You're muted, Lena. Muted.
Didn't they expand one of the AWS services for container management to also work for on-prem? Was it?
Yeah.
ECS?
ECS. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's live already, but it was definitely announced at a re:Invent last year.
ECS anyway, and something anyway as well. Right? They want the word anyway.
I think they also have EKS anywhere. I think that was also.
So that's Walter's point, I guess. Instead of going from what you will eventually be entirely in the cloud and transition that to on-prem, take your on-prem to the cloud.
I think a lot of companies are doing that. They're still figuring out the kind of how they want to strategize their fleet of compute machines, whether they want it to be on-prem, whether they want it to be a hybrid. Services like OpenShift just gives you that opportunity to lift, shift, and if it works out for you, all right, we'll stay with you. If it doesn't, we'll go back to the to the former set.
I was talking yesterday. I was on a roundtable event, and it was about cloud migrations. And one of the questions there was around the so-called double bubble, where when you're migrating to basically any other platform for a while, you have double costs because you're paying for your old stuff and for your new stuff. And being able to reduce the time of the double bubble can significantly change the business case of doing the migration in the first place. So if you have to tell your finance people that you're going to be having a double cost for 2 years, it's a very different story than if you can do it in 3 months. And if you're on-prem on on-prem on OpenShift, and you can say, hey, we can be mostly on AWS with actually very little change to everything else in, let's say, 3 months or 6 months. That significantly changes the story. So I guess there's a business case there. But I would also must say that I've never actually used OpenShift. It's probably
Same here.
Same here.
I hear people who use it and are very happy with it, but I don't actually have a technical opinion on OpenShift.
But this news is mostly about money grab. They just want to grab that business as it feels like that. It's just the opportunity to grab the business, and everybody's going after this trend of hybrid cloud model.
Well, that's a good point. Also, I think that cloud adoption is reaching a different stage where, in the beginning, it was about companies that were ahead of the curve and were doing something new and innovative. Those were the companies that were going to cloud. They usually had compelling events. And we are now well into the part where the companies that are not yet on the cloud have very little reason to do it. So the story you need to have to such companies becomes a very different story because you need to convince them not that they need to do this because they have a compelling event like a data center lease ending or whatever, but instead you have to think about a story that says, okay, you can increase the speed of your business, or you can decrease your costs, or you can increase your reliability, and having a good story for such customers that aren't really necessarily interested in the innovation part of it is also an important.
I want to tell you a story of how one of my husband's employers got acquired by the competition, and the competition had been sniffing around trying to understand what they would get. Obviously a better product, but also they were like, your infrastructure costs are 10 times less than ours, and they were on AWS. And my husband's company at the time, they were running an on-prem like minimum infrastructure with very well built and no superfluous costs. And when the acquisition happened, they understood that all of the site reliability engineers had like a clause in their contracts that they must use the latest technology. So it had become like a pissing contest where everyone tries to get the most expensive AWS service and everything new and fancy. And in the end, it was like a
nightmare,
price for something that generated like 3,000 alerts a week.
That's the thing about the cloud. You have to be completely pragmatic about it. You cannot just lift and shift. And a lot of people, a lot of companies are doing lift and shift without being pragmatic, and it's dangerous. because the snowball effect after you shift is gonna be quite disastrous. So it's a lot of companies have gone through that, and I really hope people will learn from it.
I doubt it, because it's one of those things, right? So when you we've seen it a number of times. When you're on-prem, you're not paying for things that you all of a sudden start paying for in the cloud. So very often, now all of a sudden you need to pay for network traffic, and this is not a thing before. So you just had a certain amount of bandwidth, and that was either enough or not enough, and that's the whole amount of thinking you did about how much data you're actually pushing back and forth between places, and then all of a sudden in the cloud you need to think about it, and
it's not
very often.
It's not.
Yeah, it depends on the application. Sometimes it's nothing. You'd think, oh, this must be a lot, and then it's nothing. And I've also seen customers where you're running basically a glorified WordPress blog. How are you having a terabyte of traffic coming out of your environment? Something's off.
So next topic, since we're talking about on-prem and cloud, we have an article on the multi-cloud approach and how it should sound more and more appealing after what happened to OVH data centers in Strasbourg. The whole point of the article is that if one of their data centers burned down, they had damage to another too. And there are statistics that say that about 50% of the companies that have suffered such severe data loss, because obviously they haven't tested their disaster recovery plans, are not going to make.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I just said they probably didn't have a disaster recovery plan to begin with.
I think everyone pretends to have a disaster recovery plan in their head. Why?
In the head, so everything is in the cloud. So they think, okay, we're gonna be in the cloud. It's gonna be there. It's gonna be away from the fire from the ground.
Yeah, thinking about it, I saw a flash drive yesterday that my baby was trying to eat, and I'm like, don't give it to her. She's going to destroy it. And then I'm like, do we need flash drives anymore? Because we've backed up everything in the cloud, so we shouldn't need flash drives. She can totally eat that.
Yeah, no, I haven't used a flash drive in a very long time. It's not a thing in this. I got a present for my birthday, and it came with a CD, like a CD-ROM. And I'm like, cool. I literally have no device in this house that can read a CD anymore. So
the makeup mirror, man.
Yeah.
we used
and since I do so much makeup.
We used our PlayStation when we had to play the Spider-Man film to our son.
Nice. Yeah, but slightly back on track. I have significant issues with this particular blog post, and one of it is the fact that they're trying to promote the idea of multi-cloud, which I think is an idea that should probably die in a fire somewhere. I believe in
monogamy, apparently.
Also, yes, slightly off topic again, but I believe in choosing a cloud. I can see hybrid cloud, so on-prem and cloud. I can see that happen. I can see companies that deploy different workloads on different clouds. All totally fine. I do not believe that you should abstract away your workloads so that they can be deployed on any cloud. That's just madness, designed by companies like Jelastic that happen to be thriving off of selling the multi-cloud story. But
you know what's funny? I kept reading it and I didn't know that Jelastic was a thing. And the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, yeah, so Terraform Enterprise, yeah. And like, Jelastic, what is that?
Unfortunate, and I find it quite unfortunate to try and sell your product on the back of a pretty disastrous event. So that's also not necessarily something I very much appreciate.
That's the whole selling story of any security product or service out there. Pointing to a major security incident, like you don't want this to happen to you. So
Yeah.
buy our products and services.
But it can be done in a more respectful way, though. I've seen sessions like that. I've seen a really good session that just, instead of directly doing that, just went through a number of big security incidents and tried to teach some of the things that you could learn from that. Which I think is a much more respectful way of doing it. It's a difficult note to hit because I think especially in this OVH situation, it's such a black swan event. Like it's the first time in years that I hear of this this kind of big fire that literally melted a data center. Yeah, so I don't know. I wanted to put the article there, not because we like it, but because there's significant things to be said about it, and I think that's also something we want to do on this show.
But a lot of companies is hesitant when it comes to disaster recovery plan, and most of them, in my past experience, the one that's holding them back is mainly the cost, because sometimes they tend to choose the active passive mode and keeping the other workload in passive mode for a significant amount of time. It's also going to cost money for them. But they just, cost is always the one that's hindering them from thinking thoroughly about how to recover from this kind of disasters. And also like developers like, hey, we don't care, it's going to be in the cloud, we can just push the code to another provider and it runs again. But that's not the case. That's not the reality.
I think that disaster recovery plans and pretty much any kind of backup restore scenario is an insurance policy, and basically you need to determine how much money you want to spend on being safe and secure, and how much money it will cost you if you happen to fall offline for an extended period of time, and that's what should determine how much money and time and effort you put into this stuff.
I have worked for exactly one company that has a serious and tested disaster recovery plan, which included this data center is bombed, and this data center will pick up, and we would actually test that I think twice a year.
That's amazing.
Company.
Yeah, and I think that actually this is very important. I mean, having a backup and being able to actually use this backup and restore from it and restore your business is a different story. So testing and verifying that your disaster recovery is okay is definitely something that also should be done regularly.
We found all sorts of issues during this testing because the application had this weird thing where it had like the service name in the configuration file, and it had a dash, and you wouldn't see it with a human eye, but the dash could sometimes differ and the service wouldn't start. and you had to compare configuration files with Notepad++. The one reason I would switch from a Mac to a Windows machine. How you found
encoding, yay!
Yeah, it's the tiniest little thing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think that working systems in IT is one thing, but there's much more interesting stuff on the side of failure and how you deal with failure. Because failure, there are many more ways in which a system can fail than ways in which it can run. Basically, there's one configuration that works and everything else simply doesn't work. So designing for failure and making sure that failure at the simplest places on code level. If I don't know, this API call fails, then give the user an error message, and it goes all the way down from databases that get a table dropped or a whole database dropped, down to a data center on fire. And each one of these failure stories has a different restore story attached to it. And ticking all of the boxes is a very costly exercise. So you have to kind of pick and choose where you want to be able to deal with failure.
So, speaking of clouds and all that, the next topic, my pick was how Oracle is trying to get into the cloud game and is pretending to be a player. Are they?
I heard yesterday for the very first time in a very long time someone say, we're using Oracle Cloud. Like, really? Is that a thing that people do?
Yeah, that was what I was about to say. I have never heard of anyone actually using their cloud. So
it's interesting, right? Because both Oracle and IBM Cloud are supposedly significantly running revenue. I mean, this article states that Oracle is running at a $2 billion run rate. Like, who are these people that are running that?
But you can't what do you call that? I mean, so they own a lot of popular software platforms that people use, like MySQL, Oracle database, obviously preferred by enterprise customers. But you can say the same about MySQL. But also platforms like Java. So you're building software. When you want to build software, you want to run it somewhere. So their proposition is kind of like complete. We own the technology stack that helps you build the software. We also own the platform that helps you run the software more efficiently.
Yeah.
So
why not?
Yeah, for Oracle specifically, if you're like using everything else in AWS, for example, or Azure, and you have an Oracle database, I would trust Oracle to host it on their cloud and use it from there, because Oracle, I love Oracle, but it's very complicated and it's very easy to not configure it properly because it's like an operating system. It's above a database, and I've seen people do such atrocities when trying to configure it, like trying to bypass its entire memory management and cache the entire database files in the Linux server's memory. What was that?
I've done that before, so guilty.
Been there, done that.
No, it pains me because I spent a Christmas helping a Turkish company, obviously not celebrating Christmas at the time, get their performance up and running, and it was a disaster because we didn't have access to the machines, so and they wouldn't give us DBA level access, so we were we were basically testing commands with just give us the alter session privilege, and we'll try to alter the session with these parameters, and then you do alter system, and it was a very lengthy exercise. And if they can manage the performance and the caching of the Oracle database, then yeah. That's a good reason.
I programmed against Oracle for several years and really liked it from that perspective. The fact that you can throw like a 3 or 4 page long SQL query at it and it will nearly instantly give you a result is really quite excellent. It's just completely useless for the web world. This was for back when we did desktop applications. But we are almost out of time. We have one more article that I just quickly want to mention. DigitalOcean became a public company this week. I believe their current stock price isn't necessarily going super great, but for me that's next to irrelevant. I am personally happy to see a cloud company become public because it's kind of the how to say that, seal of approval from the market that you've made it far enough to go public and be taken as a serious player. And I've always really liked the simplicity of DigitalOcean. I'm quite curious to see where they will go from here.
I'm happy too, because I'm also a customer of DigitalOcean. I'm also a customer for Linode as well. So these two companies grew up in the same time. I would say Linode came first, then DigitalOcean, because they were playing the VPS game, and each of them were chasing each other. And to have DO to actually go public, that's nice. Time to buy that stock.
And time for some competition from the big boys, let's challenge the big three. So quite curious to see what comes out of that in the next couple of years, because obviously it'll be a while. Right now they're a dwarf compared to at least the biggest couple of providers, but interesting nonetheless. Good to keep an eye on. I think we've reached the end of the road.
Yes.
So.
Naz, Vlado, it was great having you again. And as you've seen in the first news article that we discussed, it's fine to go back to a previous employer. So,
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Giving you your 2 minutes of self-promotion or promotion of ideas that are dear to you. Go.
Yeah, Nazrul, you go first, and then we'll close up with Vlad. If you want to say something, now is the time to mention that you're hiring.
I guess I think the key message that I want to say from the show is be pragmatic in a lot of things. So you can see the news and you can see how pragmatism, number one, could help a company become successful and goes public. We have one. Number two, prevent any kind of disasters. If you're being pragmatic, you can prevent disasters. And number three, I guess, if you're pragmatic with the choices that you have in your for your workloads, you probably don't need the cloud. So there's a potential there. So you just have to be pragmatic about it.
Definitely a thing to keep in mind. Thanks, Nazrul. Good to see you. Vlad?
Actually, yeah, I kind of agree with what Nazar said. And on top of that, what I can add is keep in touch with your connections with the people you have used to work with. So obviously there is benefit from this. So yeah.
But it's a really good point also. Human relations, especially the ones that you really enjoy and like and get value out of, should span more than one company, because in your career you never know when you're going to run back into people, and it's an incredibly important aspect to have a good career, I think.
Yeah,
one world, one love.
Yay! All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lina.
Let's end the episode.
Thanks, bye.
Peace.
Peace out.
Have a nice Friday, everyone. Bye.